Hello, beautiful people. It's just one of these moments when I feel like jumping on, sharing, take a deep breath, let it out. And I'm curious how many of you out there have a blissful practice. How many of you have a practice that you do daily or every couple of days that brings about an overwhelming state of bliss, happiness, connectedness to anything, other people, nature, yourself, reality, your own heartbeat? I think it's so important. When you look at the most successful people in the world, they usually talk about like their morning rituals, getting up super early. This is what I do. Either I go for a run or I do yoga, do some breathing, ice therapy. Like there's so many beautiful practices. And there's a practice that I've kind of put together based on some of the greatest practitioners, Wim Hof and other interesting individuals. But when I say I put it together, I spent many years traveling halfway around the world and studying with a teacher. His name is Dr. Ramses Salim. And he was born and raised in Egypt and invited at a very young age into kind of an underground true teachings of the ancient Egyptian wisdom. And I'm really looking forward to getting more into that. I probably won't get into it now, but it teaches the true history of where the Egyptians come from, who they actually were as a people, and what it was they were committed to doing. And almost literally as an entire nation for thousands and thousands of years, all of the Egyptians had a very similar commitment and outcome for this life. They knew why we were here. They knew that we have souls, we're evolving through this process. And there was a very specific physical culture as well as spiritual culture amongst the Egyptians. And you guys will always see me wearing this. Some people think it's weird. A lot of people have misconceptions about Egypt and what it was and what it symbolized. And, after about 600 BC and the fall from the invasion of the Persians and the Romans and the Greeks and all these other nations, Egypt became something quite grotesque and not what it actually originally was about. I would say that they went from rulers of light and assisting humanity into higher consciousness and ascension, and then taken over by a very dark faction. And if you look into the history, you'll hear of Osiris, and you'll hear of Ra, and you'll also hear of Set, or Satanaku. And, the sun sets, that's when we go into darkness. And we go through these kind of experiences of the sun rising on a galactic scale, on a large scale, and coming into consciousness, and, midday and enlightened society. And then we go into this sun setting or dark phases, and everything falls. And it's like there's this repeating process. And it's the likes of Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval and a lot of these scientists that look at the dating of the Sphinx and the pyramids are saying, man, these things are way older than what we're thinking. And Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years old. And like, man, there was civilizations that were highly advanced, cutting and moving stone and doing things that were outside of our current knowledge. But anyways, there have been these societies that existed long before what we're being taught. And believe it or not, there's been very few individuals who've actually been the record keepers. And this guy, Dr. Ramses Salim, was one of those individuals. There's probably 2 or 3 of them, according to him, 2 or 3 wisdom keepers, specifically from the Egyptian lineage. Of course, there's been wisdom keepers of the Brahmins and Persians and places around the world, certain Native American tribes and things that have kept the wisdom passed down through mouth to ear to others and sharing. And, even iridology and sclerology and healing remedies and herbs and powerful processes for healing and clearing whether it's the Amazon and ayahuasca ceremonies, or different types of plant-based medicines and shamans that have guided society out of the trauma and into this ascension process. But I just wanted to talk about this morning session. A big part of human ascension and the potential for regeneration and just longevity in general, according to the Egyptians, there's multiple paths, but one of those paths is the physical culture. And what they teach is that if you do enough physically, it's an awakening process that will set you on a path towards our own human evolution, soul evolution, really, and ascension. And there's a lot more into that, with being able to regenerate our bodies and heal and stick around much longer and have more of an impact for our own soul growth. That's the stuff that you keep with you into the next life. Everything else passes. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling here, but they had a very specific 5-part process called the ancient Egyptian physical culture, which was about stretching, becoming more flexible. And this is what a lot of the yogis do. That's one aspect. The Egyptians called it sesh, and they believe that your own psyche can be seen in your physical body. And in the areas of the physical body where you're not flexible, it's also a sign that in your psyche you're actually inflexible in certain ways as well. And so they would open themselves up physically to be flexible in every way, knowing that from a psychological level you'd be more flexible in the way that you view the world and tolerance and all these sorts of things. So that was one aspect. There's another aspect that is, well, there's a bunch of aspects, but strengthening, different types of postures and breathing. And this is where, if you go and look at the statues outside of each of the temples, you'll see they're all the same. They're standing with their left foot forward. They're holding on to a couple of bars, and they're doing something. Nobody ever really talks about it or notices, but they were doing very specific postures of breathing and movement and toning that were profound. And they're always standing on granite, and they're always holding these gold bars, and they're building this energy within themselves. The first ritual being building the energy of your heart. And in fact, if you talk to anybody who's well educated on Egypt, they'll say, well, Egypt used to be called the land of Kem. And I could show you the hieroglyphs. You can look at the hieroglyphs called Kem or Kiem, which represented the black sands of the Nile, because the Nile would inundate and put all this black sand, which was fertilizing everything. So they called it Kem. But even prior to that, you can see the cartouches in Egypt that have a different name for Egypt, and it was called Ta Meri. Ta representing land, Meri representing heart. And so Egypt was originally called the land of the heart. And the Eastern traditions taught by the Egyptians were to open the heart and feel and be guided by your heart. You see a lot of times, people walking through New York with their head forward with their briefcase, and they're all mental. So you got to push that head back and open up your chest. And you look at a gorilla or a monkey walk, and it's got its chest forward, and it's kind of like striding along, and it's feeling its environment. And a lot of times the people that wanted to learn in Egypt, like Hippocrates and Socrates and Pythagoras, when they went there, they had all this heady knowledge, and they were the most intelligent, supposedly, people of that time, but they had to change everything. The Egyptians had to put them through a process of getting out of the head and into the heart. And so there's very specific ways to do this. I just realized I meant to be on a call. It's past 4 o'clock. They're asking me right now. So I got to jump, but I just wanted to put it out there that if you don't have any type of morning activation or ritual, it's one of the most important things you can do. Whether it's getting up, drinking water, going for a walk, going for a run, doing some form of yoga, stretching, breathing exercises, ice bath, sauna, or all those things together. I do have a morning activation that I do 3 days a week with a group of people online. It's $33 a month as a membership. If you guys wanted to check it out, you'd probably have to give it about a month to really integrate into the things that we do. But it's a whole kind of 5-step process of things that we're doing that's quite profound, that will leave you in a state of bliss and activation where you feel great every day and you're connected and you're non-reactive. And it's the start of this ascension process. So if you guys are interested, you can definitely check it out somewhere on my website, tylertolman.com. But yeah, I've got to jump off for this call. Thank you guys for watching. Just random flow. Have a beautiful day.